Let's bring back Bob Woodward now. Bob, I want to go to a part of your book that I haven't seen get a ton of attention, and that's early days, the president's conversations with President Xi of China and the impact that President Xi may have had on decisions made by President Trump and the White House. You cite a February 6th call, 9 o'clock Washington time, a Thursday night in the residence, where President Trump calls President Xi. The objective with President Trump's advisors was to confront President Xi about China not allowing American health officials into the country to investigate what had been going on with coronavirus there. And in that conversation, President Xi, you quote as saying to President Trump, "I ask the United States and your officials not take excessive actions that would create further panic." So you have, Bob, President Xi telling President Trump effectively to downplay it, to not create panic. What is your sense in your conversations and your reporting of the impact that President Xi had on President Trump and the tone China took with the United States had on the way this is all played out?
President Xi was lying, and we now know that, and Trump has faced up to that and called it the China virus and made it clear that he doesn't believe what China did on this. But see, that was all known to Trump the end of January.
Right.
And that's that moment that was missed here. And Joe, I think it's really important the way you went back to what Churchill did in his response. And as a leader, Churchill is not only pointing a direction and showing his own emotions, but he is facing a moral choice, and that's what leaders do. They're not just out there as individuals. They are facing the moral choice of, am I going to be honest? Am I going to step up and be responsible? Maybe I'm going to take a little bit of a political hit. But see, this is what Trump wants to avoid, any political hit. And in being obsessed, I quote Fauci, Dr. Fauci, the leading infectious disease person in the government, saying that Trump is only interested in re-election, that Fauci's saying that Trump has almost a negative attention span. And time again in the book, you see where people are trying to get through to Trump and he dismisses them. He's driven by his own impulses, his own perception of what reality is. And this is the awful part of this. He does not know. I mean, as you pointed out, he always was telling me and eventually telling the public that he played this down. And last night he's saying he played it up. And does he understand what a fact is and what is the reality we are dealing with? This is a moving train, the pandemic, and it's speeding up. As all the experts, Dr. Fauci say, it's going to converge with the regular flu. We are confronting a health hailstorm in the coming months, according to the experts, according to the models that we're facing. Do we have a president just in this time who can kind of say, hey, let's have a plan? Again, time and time again, there's no plan. There's a Trump tweet or an impulse.
And it's always an impulse. And Mike Barnicle, 2 points going back to March. I remember us saying on this show, take the Churchill model. We said that in March, take the Churchill model. He always told the British people how bleak things were in May of 1940 and beyond. And into the fall and into the winter of 41. He always let them know that they were fighting for their very survival, never tried to sugarcoat it. It's just something that Donald Trump could not do. Also, I must say, here he is still flopping around trying to figure out what his strategy was. In early March, he was getting phone calls from from Zeke Emanuel every other day. And, you know, I spoke to Zeke on the phone, who was beyond himself and practically frantic, and saying throughout early March, the window is closing, the window is closing. He kept calling the president, saying, Mr. President, yes, nobody has died yet. And the infections are still not high, but the window is closing. And he kept saying that until finally, at one point, like Bob said, he just gave up because the window had closed, and he knew that thousands and thousands of Americans were going to die. Donald Trump was warned. You listen to what he said to Bob Woodward, it seems he understood the warnings from his own staff and people like Zeke Emanuel, and he chose to ignore those frenzied warnings regardless. Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.